With us in contact with Lansing, I'm Joanne Paul. The only way we can adequately protect ourselves is by knowing our rights. And with that in mind, a new school of sorts is being offered for common citizens to learn about the legal system. It's called the People's Law School. And joining us to talk about its design and intentions are Sinas, who specializes in personal injury and auto no-fault law, and Rob Palmer, who specializes in personal injury and criminal law, both with clients all over the state of Michigan and both with the Sinas law firm, which is headquartered in Lansing and has offices in Grand Rapids and also Chicago. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Interesting concept. I think when people think about law school, they think about those who want to become attorneys. But, I mean, how many times in our lifetime do we realize that there are legal questions that arise that we wish we had that training? Is that the premise behind this?
Exactly. People's Law School is recognized across the state at this point, but it's a program here in Lansing that's based on the concept that everybody is better off if they know their rights, and that the laws really determine how our society functions, and so we're all better off if we know our rights.
This is basically kind of a family thing. This is a little history in the making here with family members who are also involved. Tell us a little bit about the background of how this all came about.
Well, I'll start off with just the program itself. It was started by the Michigan Association for Justice, which is an organization that seeks to protect the rights of people in the civil justice system. And it was started in the early 80s in Detroit. And they also wanted to start one here in Lansing. So the Sinas law firm where I practice at and was started by my grandfather became heavily involved with People's Law School in the 80s and has stayed involved with People's Law School through the current time. It's typically been offered one time a year. There have been a few years where it's been offered twice. Maybe we'll get back up to that 2 times a year level. But at this point, it's been offered in the fall. And my father, George Sinas, who came to the firm in 1975, also became involved with putting on the program in the 80s and 90s. And then when I came to the firm, I started to be the moderator as well. My father is going to present this year, as he does most years, on auto no-fault law. But the other moderator who's helped me this year is Rob Palmer, and Rob grew up in the area as well, and here he is with us. His father is actually going to present, and his father is stalwart in the Lansing legal community, actually the Michigan legal community. He's a professor at Cooley Law School, and he's handled all types of interesting cases, so I'll turn it over to Rob to talk about that.
That's right. Thanks, Steve. My father, Charlie Palmer, was in private practice here in the greater Lansing area for almost 20 years in the 70s and 80s, and then he became a professor at the Cooley Law School and has been there since that time. And so he's traveled the world and spent a lot of time really learning about the law himself and practicing the law, and so he's going to help speak this year and help educate the greater Lansing community or the greater Michigan community, as well as George Sinas.
What has been the reaction, though, to programs like this?
The reaction has been very positive, especially in the area. Every year, we're trying to get the word out in different ways. There have been some changes to the location, also the pricing. So every year, there's something kind of new. We've had varying levels of attendance, all the way from 250 to 150. I think last year was close to 200. So we're here today, and we thank you so much for the time to tell people about it. And the reason why there's a charge is there's a room rental fee that we have, and also we give written materials every night. So there's cost of production when it comes to that. If there's any money left over, it does go to a 501c3 nonprofit fund that is run by the Michigan Association for Justice, and those funds are dedicated solely to scholarships for people to go to law school. So any money that goes into People's Law School is somehow going to go to educating people. But when it comes down to trying to get the word out, it's programs like this that really help us do that. We've had some other news coverage as well. But we just really want to emphasize that we welcome everybody in the greater Lansing community. It's at Hannah Center, by the way. I should tell the location, which is on Abbot Road in East Lansing. We have a nice big auditorium there with lots of seating. So we represent whether you're a younger person, if you're an elderly person, obviously any race, any creed, anybody to come and learn about their rights, because America is fundamentally founded on the idea that we all have rights and we all should protect them. So that's why we want people to come aboard.
I was really stunned by the quality of the speakers for this event. When you think about something that's put together just to kind of educate the common man or woman or child, whatever, you don't think of the quality names that we're looking at. I mean, the rundown is pretty significant.
Yeah, well, I'll just add something, and then I'll turn it over to Rob, because he actually helped a lot get some of the real big names. We warmed things up with 3 people from Sinas Dramus. My father, who's a recognized leader in auto no-fault. He actually teaches at Michigan State as a no-fault professor, and he's always been involved with Michigan no-fault ever since it was enacted. He's starting things off on September 9th. Then I'm going to give a presentation called The Implications of the Affordable Care Act, where we look at the Affordable Care Act, its basic principles, and how it interacts with other forms of insurance, such as auto insurance. So we all kind of have an understanding of what the Affordable Care Act means for us as citizens. Then we have family law. That's with an attorney at our firm, Jackie Dupler. She clerked for Judge Baird in the Ingham County Circuit Court. And so she asked Judge Baird to present with her on family law and domestic relations and how those cases play out in the courts, so that family members, can know how those things go down. If it's divorce, if it's child custody, whatever it may be, it's supposed to give people a real life glimpse into the court system and family law. And then I'm going to turn it over to Rob, but I'm going to bring up one other presenter that we have on October 7th, Jocelyn Benson. She is now the dean of Wayne State Law School. She is the youngest dean in America of any law school.
Really?
She's 36 years old. She got her JD from Harvard Law School. She got her Master's of Philosophy at Oxford University, and she got her BA at Wellesley College. She has an outstanding resume. She is recognized as one of the leaders in election law, and so she's going to be presenting on election law. And as far as Wayne State's involvement, I should mention now, Wayne State is also a sponsor of People's Law School. They help us get speakers. They help with some of the funding if needed. And I'm a grad of Wayne State Law School, so that's a nice little connection. They are there to help us, and they're going to help us start one in Detroit. So Dean Benson is just a great addition, and we're so happy that she can come up. I'll also mention that this year we're implementing a new feature called the per night fee. If you don't want to pay the $25, which is the cost for the whole 7-week semester, you can pay $7 for a night, and you can come any night that you want, and each night you'll get a set of written materials. So
it's $25 for all that information. It seems amazing to me.
Yeah. And I'll let Rob tell about the other 3 people that he recruited. They're outstanding additions to the lineup this year.
Well, one of the interesting things about our lineup here is that I think it sort of showcases that we have some amazing legal talent in the greater Lansing area and mid-Michigan in general, and many of those folks are very willing to help out, or with a program such as this, and volunteer their time, and we are very appreciative of that fact. The first speaker that I'm going to talk about is on September 30th. We have Professor Mike McDaniel from the Cooley Law School. Professor McDaniel is also a brigadier general in the Michigan National Guard, and he previously served as the advisor for Homeland Security to Jennifer Granholm, and then he's also had a number of other Homeland Security related positions in the government, both state and federal. And so Professor McDaniel is going to come in and talk about constitutional law and Homeland Security and immigration. And of course, that's a very popular topic, a very relevant topic right now. There's obviously a lot of coverage in the news with the border crisis and whatnot. And so Professor McDaniel is going to address that directly. Another professor from Cooley that's going to speak is Professor Kathy Swedlow. She is a professor of criminal law and criminal procedure at Cooley Law School. But before she joined Cooley Law School, she spent a considerable amount of time in the federal public defender's office, where she worked on death penalty cases in Pennsylvania, in the state of Pennsylvania. And so she's going to be speaking on the criminal law and justice system with a particular emphasis on death penalty. And again, that is a very relevant topic. When you read CNN or some of the news sites around, there's always a lot of talk about the death penalty. Of course, we don't have it in the state of Michigan and haven't had it for quite some time. But she's going to address death penalty issues, cruel and unusual punishment, and those types of things, and really try to give a perspective on that, especially in the state of Michigan, where people maybe not necessarily know about that too much.
Sure.
And then the final speaker that I arranged on October 21st is actually my father, Charlie Palmer. Again, he is a professor at Cooley Law School. He taught in the torts department and the criminal law department and quite a few other areas. But he's going to come in and talk about sort of the history of tort law in the United States, and that's actually much more. It sounds like an interesting topic anyway, I think, but it's actually much more fascinating than I think people realized at the beginning, because it sort of sets up the entire civil justice system in the United States. And he's going to talk about that and some of the Supreme Court decisions and some of the relevant big thinkers in civil jurisprudence who have helped design what we have today. So,
how were these speakers selected? I mean, were you hearing from constituents or from clients saying, this is what we want to know about? Or is it from the news?
That's a very good question. And let me first start by explaining that we do this with the intention of doing it again every year. So we hope that, the people that go one year come back the next year. And because of that, we try not to duplicate the syllabus from the years past. It happens, and there's good reason to sometimes keep certain topics on the syllabus because there are new developments and things like that, or there's just high demand. But we try to pick out topics that are relevant for the times. And for instance, on the capital punishment one, we've heard a lot of cases of capital punishment procedures not going correctly, where people are, it's taking hours for the whole thing to occur, and whether that raises Eighth Amendment cruel and unusual punishment issues. So that was a relevant topic. We have the Department of Homeland Security because we've never really had something like that before, and we all know that Department of Homeland Security is always relevant, and he's especially going to focus on immigration issues with the Department of Homeland Security. Not so much trying to get into a debate of what the immigration policy should be, but what the Department of Homeland Security does and is supposed to do when it comes to immigration issues and customs issues. So we thought that would be relevant in any year, and especially here in Michigan, where we are a customs state. So that was one of the reasons for bringing him in. As far as Dean Benson goes, like I said, she's just a leader in election law, and she's coming in on October 7th. That date worked for her, but we thought it was an excellent date. It's 4 weeks before an election. So she's going to come in and talk about our rights as voters, and when it comes down to voter ID laws, how the poll places are run, and then she'll also touch on bigger election law issues such as campaign financing and the Voting Rights Act and things like that. So we couldn't turn that down. Last year we had another professor from Wayne State who is a former constitutional law professor of mine, Robert Sedler. He's recognized as one of the leaders in constitutional law. He came in and gave a talk on the gay marriage cases and also the campaign finance cases dealing with the First Amendment issues and campaign finance reform. So last year, those were two really relevant topics. But this year, Wayne was gracious enough to make Dean Benson available, and the election law presentation is something I'm really looking forward to. As far as my topic, the Affordable Care Act, I presented that last year because it was new, and now I want to kind of extend the discussion. I told people last year that, okay, we got the basics down, let's explore this further. So the same goes for the auto law discussion. My father, just the objective.
These are really hot topics.
Yeah.
These really are. People are on one side or the other, but and normally can't find common ground.
Yeah.
But they're really hot topics.
Yeah. So George is going to give the update on auto no fault, which we always hear about in the news, is whether it should be reformed, what the principles are in no fault. So he goes over that every year.
There are some speakers there who are former candidates themselves. The concern is going to be: is this a political or a non-political?
Absolutely not. It's absolutely not political. There are, like you said, speakers that are tied to certain political views. Even the MAJ organization could be said to be tied to a certain political view. But everybody who makes this happen is committed to the same common principle, which is to educate the public about their legal rights. And people have fun with it, and there's no agenda beyond that whatsoever.
Can you give me an indication, kind of take me through the process of what someone who enrolled in this would see and what they'd be going through?
Well, sure. The program runs 2 hours each night, and it's open
on Tuesdays.
On Tuesdays, I should have added that.
Yeah.
And it's open to the public, as Steve said. And so the program typically starts out with a short introduction. It's a moderated speech, so For most of the nights, either Steve or I will be moderating. And we introduce the speaker, and then we allow the speaker to speak freely for about an hour at first, and take a short break, and then usually come back and hit on a few more topics, and then we open it up to the audience, and we allow the audience to ask questions of the speaker, and so they have a free opportunity to really challenge those speakers and pick their minds about certain issues, and I think that's very important, just because. Lawyers have this unique ability where there's lawyers practicing in virtually every part of society. So, for example, when you're talking about constitutional rights, Eighth Amendment issues, those kind of things, those rights are being debated in the court system by attorneys, and same with the immigration, same with the divorce, and so what we've tried to do is pick speakers here who we think that the audience, the greater public, will really have a good opportunity to interact with and to really learn what it is that they're talking about. When we read a 2-minute blurb in the newspaper or hear it on the news about the death penalty, we understand what the facts maybe of that particular case are. But I think people don't necessarily always understand the greater implications of that. What are that prisoner's constitutional rights? Why is that important for us to protect it? Why should we care? And so attorneys have sometimes a better insight into that because they've studied the law. They understand the principles behind what it is that we're debating, and we can help the audience sort of gain a better understanding, and so that they can participate more fully in the democratic process and be more informed on these issues, and hopefully that leads to a better society altogether.
And I don't mean to fixate on the cost, but for $25, which is basically, Starbucks for a week, or
Right.
not even, or as little as $7, as you mentioned, to actually have access directly to somebody from Homeland Security or to somebody who ran for office and talk about campaigning laws, to have access directly to them and ask questions one-on-one. I mean, that's access that we in the media normally get, but normal people don't.
And I would say that, what I'd really tell anybody who's thinking about attending People's Law School is that look at it as an opportunity to have a nice discussion with a leader in your legal community. We tell our speakers to look at it like they're having a conversation with somebody, like they're just trying to explain to an average person what they do, what this issue's about. Like I said, there's no agenda. It's really just to get people so they understand the actual big picture of the legal system. So I think that, it lends for a very pleasant evening. It's not like you're going to school and you're worrying about some test. We call it school because we're going to learn something. But the atmosphere is relaxed. It's at nighttime. It's in the fall.
There's no test afterward?
There's no test afterward. But if you attend all 7 sessions, you get a certificate. So
how cool.
You do get something, and you don't really have to do anything in terms of passing any test or anything like that to get the certificate. You just have to show up. So,
and we should also probably take an opportunity right now to really publicly thank all of our speakers, both this year's lineup and those who have spoken in the past. Because as you said, we've had the great fortune of having some really, really intelligent, prominent folks in their fields come, and these folks aren't compensated in any way. They are volunteering to do this out of the goodness of their heart. And
they put together written materials too, so this is a several-hour commitment on their part.
Right. Each night there's a speaker. There are written materials that the audience can follow along with, that were prepared individually by the speaker. And so, as I said, they're doing all of this out of the goodness of their hearts and volunteering their time to do this. And, any money is just going to pay for the costs. So these folks aren't compensated in any way. And we've had this is my second year involved with the program. Steve's been involved with it much longer, but we've had great fortune in having these people volunteer. And quite frankly, as soon as you ask them, they're always very warm and very receptive and very ready to help out, and we really can't thank them enough.
I was going to say, Dean Benson, she lives in Detroit. She's coming up from Detroit. She's going to stay overnight, just to do this presentation. So, she's a dean of a law school, and she's coming up just for this. So,
well, and I also would applaud the people who actually enroll in these classes. It's one thing to say, I think the law says, or I've heard the law says, but to actually go there, commit to 2 hours a night, and to learn.
Yes.
To be educated.
Absolutely. And we have a number of folks who come back every year, year after year after year, and we do allow them to have some input as to the their views on certain speakers. They get to fill out a card at the end of the year, and so we are in tune with that as well. As to we try to serve our audience, and so we'll see how we take their input every year and try to arrange our audience the next year, or our speakers the next year, for what will work for them, what they're interested in.
And let me just say that we, like Rob said, we welcome back everybody who's come before, but this year especially we want to see some new faces. So if you're feeling like you are interested, just do it. Just do it at least for one night.
Sure.
I mean, shoot, if you come for one night and you want to then pay for the semester the second night, I'm here to tell you all we'll do it that way, So just give us a shot. It's 2 hours every Tuesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Hannah Center, 7 weeks, September 9th through October 21st, every Tuesday. So give us a shot.
Are you ever surprised by the questions you hear?
Yeah, sometimes the questions are so informed and impressive. Sometimes they also reveal that people don't understand something. So either way, it's an interesting process to see what people do think and know about the legal system. And we just hope we help them with knowing more.
Well, obviously, as you mentioned, these are issues that have been in the news, immigration reform, tort reform, the Affordable Care Act. Where are you seeing the most interest generated? And what do you expect to be the biggest questions asked in those areas?
I think every night, from my experience in the years past, the people come in who actually decide to attend that night, and they all want to know about the topic. So if it's a topic and there are current events going around about that topic, people are going to somehow bring it up. We let the speakers give their initial speech in the first hour, but it's at that break where we get the questions from people, and we come back for that second hour where we let the speaker obviously continue to present how they want to, but we let the audience start engaging. And so to answer your question, I mean, I think this fall, any night, people could ask a very profound question or show that they really truly are seeing the depths of the issues we're presenting. I think the capital punishment night, that's going to be a heavy discussion. We're talking about
very emotional.
Yeah, emotional. And there are emotions on both sides. One thing we try to do, again, in efforts of not having an agenda, is that we try to take polarizing topics and tell everybody early on, we're not going to make this polarizing tonight. We're going to talk about, the issues, so we all know the issues. But there are going to be some lines drawn if things start to get overly emotional. But things like capital punishment are emotional issues. So I imagine that night is going to be some heavy thinking. I think Rob's dad, the thing I really look forward about that, because I practice personal injury law, is that he's going to give a history of negligence law, also called tort law. And, the personal injury industry can be much maligned for its ad campaigns and things like that. But I believe in what I do, and Rob does too. And,
absolutely.
We're looking to get justice for people, and they're based on these concepts that are rooted in American law. So he's going to explain those concepts. Again, I know that maybe there'll be people in the audience that want to talk about, how bad personal injury law is in their mind, but Professor Palmer is there to get
the
people to
so-called
understand.
ambulance chasers?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he's there to explain to people the legal principles that underlie the system, which are sound, from my point of view.
The other thing I was going to point out is that some of these topics are topics that are very relevant in the news, like immigration reform, the death penalty, and whatnot. But also, we've tried to balance that with topics that are pertinent to real-world people in the Mid-Michigan area, and that are really, important in their lives. For example, George Sinas is going to speak about auto no-fault law. People don't plan on being in car accidents. Those come about randomly on your drive to work or your trip to the grocery store, and so having a good understanding of what it is that you're entitled to when you're in one of these random events is good information. The same goes for things like the Affordable Care Act. Obamacare is a hot topic, but at the same time, it's also the law, and it requires people to take action. And Steve is going to address what are your responsibilities under the Affordable Care Act, and of course, family law. Many people around the Mid-Michigan area or Greater Michigan are find themselves all of a sudden sometimes in divorce situations, child custody situations, and they need to know their rights. And so we've tried to blend together a mix here of of speakers who address these greater national issues, and at the same time, people who can give information that has a real world impact on the folks who attend. And that's important. And so I'm sure that on those nights when the questions come, a lot of those questions are going to be very personal in nature. Folks who have been through these processes before. And so that can be emotional at times, but at the same time, it helps, I think, the greater audience really learn and understand what's going on.
Can I add something?
Sure.
One thing about just trying to recruit people this year, I mean, maybe the dreamer side of me is making me say this, but, I look at People's Law School as something that can change every year. It can get better every year. The more participation we have, the more stuff we can do with it, the more fun it can be. I look at it as an opportunity to really expand upon a community event. It's something that has been maintained here in Lansing, as we've talked about, for a number of years. People recognize it already. And there's no reason why our community can't just rally around it and make it even better. It's made better by people participating. It's not by anything that Rob or I do as moderators. I guess you could say it's by our presenters really participating because they're the one that gives the content. But I'm also trying to say that it's made better by having more people from the community participating. The more people that show up, the more people, and we've had people meet each other at People's Law School, So if you're in the middle of a busy life and, you want to meet interesting people and you don't know where to meet them, chances are if they're at People's Law School and you're at People's Law School, you maybe have something in common, So it's just an opportunity to get involved and to learn, and everybody benefits from it.
Well, I would think as well that, a lot of people don't like lawyers.
Yes, that's true.
But, this gives you guys the opportunity to show personality, to show that you're really concerned about, upholding the law.
And if there's any agenda on our part, I think it's that we like to be out there and show that we really do care about what we do and care about legal principles. And, we're not your quintessential sleazy lawyers, and that's not really the reality of who we are and what the system's all about. So
yeah, absolutely. We look forward to interacting with the folks, and if there happens to be a good lawyer joke in there, that's even all the more the better. There's some really good ones out there. So we like to be involved with the community and really hear what they have to say, and it helps us practice law better as well.
Okay, well, we're just about out of time. Again, tell me when it is, where it is, how people get involved. Is there a website where they can get information?
Yes, it is September 9th through October 21st, every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Hannes Center on Abbot Road in East Lansing. As far as signing up, you can contact the Michigan Association for Justice at 517-321-3073. You can also contact our law firm at 517-394-7500 and talk to Hazel if you want to do it that way, but we prefer you call Michigan Association for Justice. There is going to be a website launched by hopefully tomorrow. It was down for a couple of reasons, but it is peopleslawschool.org. So that'll be up by hopefully no later than next week.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much, and good luck with your program. Again, if you're interested, get involved. You can't critique something and complain about it if you don't get in there and get educated. So thank you for being here to talk about it. We appreciate that. With this In Contact with Lansing, I'm Joanne Paul. Thanks for joining us.